it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the spot!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. Bittt. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Matt Ohayon with you another Friday on the Sick Podcast. Welcome to your weekend and welcome to the Sick Podcast with Matt Ohayon, the Hebrew Hammer, of course. All right, let's take care of some business before we jump into today's episode. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Energy Transportation Group has once again been recognized as one of Canada's top fleet employers for the fourth consecutive year. This prestigious accolade underscores their steadfast dedication to fostering a workplace of excellence and opportunity, much in part to their exceptional team for their unwavering commitment and contribution. Energy Transportation Group, top fleet employer. And with over 30,000 feet of new gaming, dining, and entertainment space, it's time to reacquaint yourself with Playground. World-class sushi, AAA steaks, live shows, a brand new poker floor, and so much more. Located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes away from downtown Montreal, Playground. Enjoy or experience the strip without the trip. And by Bittt Tibi beer, brewed in Quebec and a winner of a dozen international awards, Bittt Tibi offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. Bittt Tibi, embrace your true nature. And of course, finally, by Accent Assurance. You know all insurance isn't created equal, and you know where to find the right insurance solution for you. Accent Insurance. Accent doesn't sell insurance. They shop insurance for you to find the right product, right on the money, whatever your insurance needs, home, auto, or business. Call the Accent team today at 514-363-3636 and get the right solution at the right price. Visit their website at accentassurance.com. Okay. I'm not going to do it. Okay. You know what? Fine. The Canadian producer Shane, do not clip this and do not make this the headline of the episode. But the Canadiens have made their first move of the offseason. It's a big one. It's not a big one. They signed Jared Davidson to a 2-year entry-level contract. And also, very nice story, Carey Price received an honorary doctorate from the University of Northern British Columbia. We might broach these topics, but we're going to talk about something else with my usual Friday guest. His name is Stu Cowan. He's from the Montreal Gazette. Stu, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Nice weather. It's summer's coming. It's beautiful.
Oh, listen, summer's been here. Summer has been, maybe it's not the official first calendar day of summer, but summer is here. And you know what? I'll say this. We talk about this all the time, you and I remember we talked about this in the winter that, we were complaining about stuff in the winter, and then in the summer, we're going to complain about stuff about the summer. My one complaint, truly, so far only, is that, I have these blackout shades on my windows, but I don't have curtains covering the ends. So every morning at 6 a.m., the sun is rising, and it rises through my big window, and it peers in, and it wakes me up no matter what time I go to bed. That's my only complaint.
You go buy some curtains.
That's it. It's a simple problem.
Grand Prix next weekend, which is the unofficial kickoff the summer. So hopefully you get the same weather next weekend that we're going to get this weekend.
That's right. And this weekend is the Tour de Lille. coupled with the insane amount of construction going on in this city.
Avoid downtown at all costs.
Is it bad out there? I have some my friends from Boston are finally coming in to see me, and I told them there's 6 of them coming in, so two of them are going to be staying with my friend in St. Henry, and 4 of them are staying with me over in Côte Saint Luc. And I said, you guys are really lucky you're staying with me, because they might be those 2 that are staying in St. Henry. They might be circling the blocks nonstop all night looking for parking.
Well, since we got the Rem and Brossard, I never drive downtown anymore.
There you go. There you go.
Whatever, it's the best way to go.
All right, so let's jump into it. Listen, the Canadians made the first little signing. Jared Davidson, a good listen. He played well in Laval. Scored a couple goals. 11 goals in 38 games. Obviously, didn't play the full season. A 5th-round pick. So it's always nice when these 5th-round picks make their way through the system. Instead of, the last time you hear about them is the first time you hear about them on draft day. That's always nice.
Yeah, 21-year-old. He's got size, 6 foot, 180 pounds. A centerman also. You can never have too many centers. And, he had some offense when he played for Seattle. He had 82 points 2022-23 season, 89 points the season before that. When JF Houle had his news conference this week when they extended his contract for 3 years, we talked about, they didn't make the playoffs this year. Laval was a really young team, and he was talking about how they're going to try and find that balance of young players and a little bit more experienced players to try and put on a good show for fans in Laval and try and get into the playoffs. It's a real juggling act, right? In the AHL, it's not all about wins and losses, especially with this Canadian team. It's more about developing. Houle kept losing his best players, Joshua Roy getting called up, stuff like that. So this is another more depth for down in Laval, a center with some offensive potential. And from what Houle said, from speaking with John Sedgwick, the GM of Laval, like they want to, development's still number one, but they want to have a decent team in Laval too. They don't want that losing attitude to creep into Laval, same way they don't want it to creep in with the Canadians.
Yeah, and you know what? Since JF Houle has been at the helm of the Laval Rocket, it's been quite the nice change, because I forget who the coach was. It was one of Bergevin's guys, and they missed the playoffs in their first 7 years in Laval or something like that. It was just a mess. The whole development system was a mess. It seems like there's continuity at all levels for the Canadians organizationally, be it with the Trois-Rivières Lyon through to the Laval Rocket up to the Canadians. At all levels, there is some sort of control from the Canadians, and they know what is happening at all levels, not just, I'm trying to win games and save my job here in Laval. I'm trying to win some games, save my job in Three Rivers.
Yeah, it was Sylvain Lefebvre was a coach there for a long time.
Right.
When they didn't win off, he's now an assistant coach in the NHL. I forget who he's with. He might be with Florida. They went through a period there where they never made the playoffs. They really struggled. I remember going to St. John's to cover the end of their season one year when the Canadians missed the playoffs. And great place. If you've never been to St. John's, it's a great place to visit. But you're right. Like JF Houle, some people focus on that he's Réjean Houle's kid, but I mean, he's qualified. Like he coached a lot. He coached in a lot of different places. He coached in NCAA, he coached in the AHL, now 3 seasons with Laval. Just when you talk with players when they get called up, they respect JF. Like they speak well about him when they get called up. And he's done a good job. I mean, you look at the players who get called. Look what happened with Yoel Armia when he got sent down to Laval and when he came back. Look at Arbor Jackheim when he got sent down to Laval and he came back, how well he played. So it's not just the young guys; it's some of the older guys that get sent down there. Logan May, who spent all season there, came up and looked good when he played the final game with the Canadians. So it's that fine line. As Jeff was asked the question, I think it was Arpin Bass who asked him. Coach, he wants to get to the NHL like every other coach in the American Hockey League. And usually guys that get from the AHL to the NHL have won the AHL championship or had a winning record there. And he was asked sort of, how do you juggle that? Like you're rebuilding and it's all about development, but you still want to move forward. And he said that, he does the same thing. He tells his players the same thing he tells himself. You just live day to day, game by game, day by day, practice by practice, and let things fall where they may. So it's a good attitude for him to have as a coach. It's a good attitude for him to impart on the players down there, is just take it day by day. And if you do things right and things work out well, eventually you'll get your chance. You should get your chance to move up. So I think JF has the experience, the abilities that one day he will end up in the NHL. I mean, if and when Marty St. Louis is not going to coach here forever, all coaches get hired to be fired. Is he a possibility to replace him? Maybe. Is he a possibility to get called up in an assistant coaching role at some point? Maybe. But for now, he said he's happy to be in Laval, and I think it was a good move for them to rehire him. And as JF said, it's important to have consistency, and I agree with that. Another year for the kids coming back, young guys, same coach, basically same system, same philosophies. So it's some consistency and some continuity. I think we talked about this last week in the NHL with all the turnover in coaches, and Buffalo, it's a perfect example. Just keep changing coaches and changing systems and changing things. You're just spinning your wheels all the time. So the Canadians, they're not spinning their wheels right now with this rebuild. They've got themselves, they have a solid plan in place in the NHL. They have a solid plan in place in the AHL. We'll see if it works as we move forward, but they're not spinning their tires. They've got some traction now as they move forward in this rebuild.
Yeah, it's nice to see that there's an actual plan, an action plan, and you could see where it's going. And for all it's worth, JF Houl's kind of taking, like we talk about consistency throughout the whole organization, he's kind of taking the Canadians' route. Like wins and losses don't matter right now because there's a vision.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, when the roster at the NHL level fills out, that means the prospects will have time, a lot more time to marinate in Laval. And there will be some quality players in Laval should the Canadians and brass do their job properly and draft well. There will be quality players there. The wins will come then. Right now, he knows that some players are moving up, moving down, moving sideways, left, right, here, there, everywhere. That's the way it is right now because they need to still assess what they currently have. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, in the AHL, that's the thing. You're always going to keep losing your best players, right? When somebody gets hurt in the NHL or is struggling, they call up your best players. So that's part of it. But it's interesting. I was talking with Guy Carbonneau this weekend and wrote a column on hockeyinsideout.com, and he was talking. I asked him about Marty St. Louis, and he was saying that he's in a situation that no other Canadians coach has ever been in, where he's not really expected to win. Right? The whole thing is on development. But as Guy said, at some point he's going to be expected to win, and that's when it gets really difficult. That's when you really have to make decisions to win, not just decisions to develop. And it's a whole different ballgame when you're playing that game, which is what Carbonneau was in when he first got called up. You remember when he was first hired to coach, Bob Gainey spent half the season, the last half of his first season, behind the bench with him to give him some experience, have somebody beside him to help him out. And then the next season, he coached himself. But as he was saying, and it's true, we're going to see for now with Marty St. Louis, everything's good. I mean, he's a perfect guy for developing these young players. But when it gets to the point where they have to start winning, there's going to be more pressure on him, and the decisions he's going to make are going to be a lot harder. And it'll be interesting to see how that develops as this rebuild moves forward. I think we have one more year of fans and management sort of accepting that it's still the main thing is still development. But I think not this coming season, but the season after, I think that's when the heat's going to get turned up a bit. Okay, now we need to start winning. Now we're like fourth full year into this rebuild. We got to at least be competitive for a playoff spot, if not get into the playoffs. So it's going to, and Ken Hughes spoke about this, I think it was the end of last season, saying that as time goes on and as the pressure builds and the heat gets turned up, different people react to that in different ways. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out as we move forward.
I think while you're right, I think one thing that wouldn't be acceptable, barring injuries, which we know know all too well in this city, is bottoming out in the bottom five. I think they would be. I don't think there would be severe repercussions for the coaching staff if that happened, but I don't think that that management would be happy about it if it did happen.
No, and it's going to be interesting to see. We haven't heard anything about, the Laval coaching situation has been settled. They still have one assistant coach, Kelly Buchberger, left. So they're going to have to hire somebody to replace him sort of as the main assistant coach. But with the Canadians assistant coaches, we haven't heard anything yet about contract extensions or guys being re-signed. Those contracts are up. Speaking with Carbonneau again, he made an interesting point. Like he says, I still find it hard to understand why the Canadians keep playing man-on-man defense in the defensive zone when it's not working. That's something that it seems like, at least with Carbonneau's view, they need to maybe change that. So it's going to be interesting to see now moving forward what the coaching situation is going to be like next season. I imagine they'll be settling that I would think before the draft, if not before free agency. So I expect we get some kind of announcement in the next couple of weeks as to whether they're bringing back the entire staff or they're not. I know I was speaking with somebody who was telling me that, Trevor Letowski has a young family that he's away from all season, similar to Kelly Buckberger. That's why he left Laval, because his family's in Edmonton. He wanted to be closer to home. So whether Letowski decides he wants to be maybe closer to home, and it's tough being, anybody who's a parent. I got 2 kids, they're grown up now, but to be away from your family for an extended period like that is not easy. Marty St. Louis even said, the reason he waited to get into NHL head coaching, he wanted his kids to be grown up, wanted them to be older. He's only got 1 kid at home now. The other 2 kids are at university. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward what happens with the Canadiens assistant coaching staff. If they bring back everybody, if they add someone, I still think they could use some more experience behind the bench to help Marty out. Speaking with Carbonneau, he said, when he was named head coach, he wanted Kirk Muller to come with him. His buddy, his old line mate. Kirk didn't have coaching experience. Everybody wanted Kirk with him. But he also spoke about how happy he was to have Doug Jarvis with him also. Former Canadian, a ton of experience as an assistant coach. He was an assistant coach in Dallas when Carbonneau won the Stanley Cup there in '99. And he said, it's nice to just have somebody, a veteran guy to tell you, don't do it this way, do it that way. Don't do it. This didn't work when we tried this with this guy. Maybe try something else. So it'll be interesting to see if they do that. If they, I think they could use somebody with more experience behind the NHL bench just as a sounding board for Marty, maybe to help him just running the bench also, line matchup, stuff like that. So we'll see. I don't think we'll get the answer to those questions within the next month anyway.
Yes. So, and listen, we're going to get the answer to a lot of things, because in a month's time, the draft will have passed, which, you, myself, Eric Engels, he said it yesterday. Tony thinks it. That's 4 bigwigs. We all think that the Canadiens are going to do something pretty big. And listen, the name being tossed around right now, especially this week from the Ray and Dregs podcast, is Martin Necas. Frankly, I think it's bigger than that. They're going to go for it because, Necas he's a good player, but I'm not convinced that he's going to move the needle. He's that shot in the arm that the rebuild needs. I think it's going to be something bigger. He had one really excellent season in Carolina, and it was last year. And then, expectations grew, and I don't know. I don't follow the Carolina Hurricanes, so I don't know what happened last year. But he seemed to have probably fallen short of those expectations for whatever reason that may be. Whatever that may be, something big is at least going to try to be materialized. Yeah, I don't know what it's going to be, but, my cousin was asking me, because I said this to him when I was watching Dallas and Edmonton a couple nights ago with him. He goes, he's just tossing names at me. And I go, it's hard for me to say who this person will be because I don't know who's on the market. But I do think the Canadiens are going to try to bring someone in big like you do in that top 6 and try to really just give a boost because the rebuild needs a boost. You need to push it along. Yeah,
and I agree with you. And it's as you said, it depends who's available, right? I mean, it takes 2 to tango in any trade, but I'm sure Kent Hughes is looking to make a major move. I think he's got, we've spoken before, he's got those 2 first-round picks. I'd be shocked if he doesn't trade the second pick that they have later on in the draft and package that with some young defensemen and maybe some more draft picks. He's got tons of draft picks he can move and get some. Necas is 24 goals this season, 28 goals the season before. Centerman with some size, but yeah, he's not a game changer, right? He's not he definitely would help with depth and help at center also. And it's funny when Mark Bergeron used to say how it's so hard to get centers, and the Canadiens have lots of centers now. Kent Hughes didn't take them that long to find some centers, but yeah, I think it's gonna be something bigger than that. But again, it takes 2 to tango, right? So maybe Kent Hughes, I think, is going to definitely try to do something bigger, whether he succeeds or not. I'm not certain. And he's not at a point, excuse me, patience is one of the biggest virtues that Kent Hughes has. So he's not in a position where he has to make a blockbuster trade this year, right? That next year, the year after that, he might be more in a position to do that as the team's further along the rebuild and more ready to win and maybe set for that. Like, we're already a playoff team now. We need that. Let's get that kick right now that makes us Stanley Cup contender, not just a playoff team. So I'm sure he's trying to do something big at the draft this year. I think he'll definitely do something, but I think how big it is depends more on the other GMs than it does on Kent Hughes. And he's maintained all along, he's not going to mortgage the future for the present, not now anyway, not this early stage in the rebuild, but I agree that he really does want to give something to give this rebuild a little kick in the butt and boost it a little bit quicker than it's been going so far.
Yeah, and especially just after last offseason, I don't want to say there was a ton of disappointment around it. It's just it felt very uneventful after they acquired Alex Newhook. There wasn't really much done after that,
No.
So I think
But I think that rebuild I think he's going to want to take a bigger step each year, right? Kirby Dach was a pretty big step. Newhook was a step maybe a little bit smaller than Kirby Dach, but still another. They brought in a guy who was a first-round pick, a fairly high first-round pick. They've done that 2 years in a row, and I expect they'll do the same thing again, and maybe a little bit of a bigger step. But again, that it might be a giant step depending on who's out there and who other teams are offering the Canadiens.
It's funny because it's just one of the things, we've spoken about it in the past. And listen, I'm someone who would love a Trevor Zegras on the Canadiens.
Yep.
That's just me. I know the Canadiens fans are very split on this issue. That's just me. And I'm watching like I said, I'm watching with my cousin, the Dallas game. And he goes, you can't have Trevor Zegras because he's not imposing. Sure, he has the highlights and this and that, but he doesn't command space on the ice. He doesn't take up space. And I found that a very interesting comment because I go, look at Wyatt Johnston. This guy's tiny. He's a little nothing, but he scores 9 goals in the playoffs or 10 goals, whatever he has. And he goes, yeah, but you got to watch him. He takes up space on the ice, and players they kind of respect him. Like they'll back off because they know that if they pinch too close on him, he's going to beat them. But also if they're too far off him, he's just going to wire a shot. And, so I found that very interesting in the case of Trevor Zegras. But with a lot of these players, obviously just, the hot button players, not even necessarily trade targets, the players that constantly get talked about around the NHL. So you got Trevor Zegras, you got Mitch Marner now in the playoffs, and Austin Matthews and all these guys. It's with all these guys, I don't believe, and Elias Pettersson, I don't believe that they are who they are. I really believe, even in the case of, Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews, who have been playing in the NHL now for, it seems like they're young guns because Toronto is still the hot and sexy team for Canada, but they're not young anymore. And I just still feel like in all of these players, there's something there that can be tapped into to bring them to the next level. You might think they're at the top level because, Matthews scored almost 70 goals and Mitch Marner's a 100-point player and whatever, but there's something in there that can be tapped into to every player. And I think that's also the case with Trevor Zegras.
I agree. I mean, Zegras scored 23 goals as a 20-year-old in the NHL on a bad Anaheim Ducks team. I followed that up with another 23-goal season. He's got offensive skill, a lot of offensive skill. And what are the Canadiens missing most? Offensive skill at the forward position. Then you factor in the Cole Caulfield friendship factor. At the World Championship on social media, there was all kinds of pictures of Caulfield and Zegras together. Last summer, Zegras was at the Grand Prix hanging out with Caulfield and Suzuki. There's a friendship there. And as you mentioned, coaching. Marty St. Louis is a development coach. And, some people question, I don't know Zegras at all. Some people question his commitment or his character or whatever. But if he's a guy who wants to bring him to Montreal and have him with his buddy Cole Caulfield, he's 23 years old. He fits right into that age group that the Canadiens are building around. And in the environment that the Canadiens have built here and the culture that they're starting to build, as an outsider looking in, someone who, I don't cover the Anaheim Ducks. I don't interview Trevor Zegras on a daily basis. I've never interviewed him. I don't know what he's like as a person apart from what you read, but I just think it makes sense for a lot of reasons. If Anaheim's looking to move him, And if they can bring in a guy with that much offensive talent, who already has a connection to the team with Cole Caulfield and with Marty St. Louis as the coach, I just think it makes sense to me if they can pull off that trade, and a guy who's 23 years old, the same age as most of the young core of this group. So to me, it makes sense. It really does.
And another just little small connection why it would make sense. He would be the fourth player in the 2019 first round in the first 16 picks that the Canadians would acquire.
Well, imagine that if the Canadians, if heading into the 2019 draft, the Canadians had 4 first-round picks going, people would have been going nuts, right? Wow. Mm-hmm. So now if you get, not only you get 4 first-round picks from 2019, you get them already with NHL experience. You already have seen what they can and or can't do in the NHL, right? When you're drafting the first round, it's a guessing game, right? How they're going to adapt to playing in the NHL, travel and the environment and the pressure and the higher level of skill and all that stuff. So you're talking about guys who they've already seen in the NHL, know what they can do, and just as importantly, know what they can't do, know what they need to work on with them. And the Canadians are all about development, and they have a staff here to develop players. So, if they're looking at Zegras, and I can't understand why they wouldn't be, I would imagine Adam Necas is spending a lot of his summer going over video of him. And other players the Canadians might be interested. So if or when they do acquire these guys, they're going to have video sessions and sit down. And, Juraj Slafkovsky talked about how much Necas helped him this season, just with all the video work he did. I did a column this week on Lane Hutson and the work that he did with his university assistant coach, for video work every Monday morning, looking over it. It's a huge part of development now, and it's something the Canadians lacked previously under previous administrations, where they didn't spend enough money or have enough people. They didn't have a Adam Necas. They didn't have a director of player development. Now they do. So for the Canadians, this management team does all their homework, right? So whoever they acquire, they're going to know what they can do, and more importantly, I said, what they can't do, and they will know whether they think they can fix whatever problems there might be. Yeah, we can fix this guy. If whatever they're analyzing Trevor Zegras and they see something they don't like, and they say, yeah, we can fix that, or we can help them fix that, then why not go out and get them?
And you know what? I find also, here's another thing. You don't have to look too far to see this happening, around the NHL. Just not even the moves, but just players shouldn't be counted out too early. You don't have to look too far. You can watch, you can flip over to the highlights of last night's Florida Panthers and New York Rangers game and go see who scored, albeit it was an irrelevant goal at that point, the 3-2 goal for the Rangers. But Alexis Lafreniere is St. Eustach's finest. This guy, everyone's saying bust. He sucks. He's this, he's that, he's whatever. And, this season he turns it around. He finally puts it together. And, he's having an incredible playoff. And frankly, if Igor Shesterkin wasn't Igor Shesterkin and they had someone else in net, playing a little less average, Alexis Lafreniere would probably be in the Conn Smythe conversation.
He's
that's just how it is. These guys are so young.
He's 22 years old, Lafreniere. He's 22. And they're talking about Zegras. He's 23. It's easy to forget how young these guys are, and labeling him a bust. And a lot of people were saying, he's a bust. He's not going to make it. It's playing in the. I can't imagine what it would be like playing in the NHL, like Lafreniere and Slafkovsky and these guys who make the jump there. Like you're 18. Imagine being 18 years old and playing in New York City, playing in the Big Apple at Madison Square Garden. All of a sudden, you're a French kid from Quebec. You're in Madison Square Garden. You're in the Big Apple. You're making a lot of money. You got all this pressure on you. I don't think any 18-year-old is fully ready to handle that. Juraj Slafkovsky handled it incredibly well here, but he wasn't fully ready to handle it. I mean, he's even admitted, like last year, he probably paid too much attention to what was happening on social media and let things bother him. It's especially playing in these big markets at that age. It's so difficult. And with Lafreniere, I'm seeing some stuff online that he could be he's a candidate for the Olympic team for Team Canada, the way he's been playing at the age he is, and another 2 years of development under him. There's a reason why he was a number 1 overall pick, right? And a consensus number 1 overall pick. So it takes time, and it takes time to develop. So for people ready to write off Zegras, oh, he's a problem, or he's this, or he's not that, he's 23 years old. And the Canadiens have, as I said, that's the age group that they're focusing on. And as you mentioned, I mean, they have 4 first-round picks from that 2019 19 draft, and they got a bunch of other first-round picks too. Nick Suzuki was a first-round pick. Yoel Armia was a first-round pick. They got a lot of Caden Gooley was a first-round pick. They got a lot of guys on the team with a lot of talent, and now the key is to develop it. And I think the Canadiens have the right people in place to do that.
I think they do too, and it just goes to show is just you can't be labeling these guys because it's it was 2 years ago or last year. Everyone's saying how could the Rangers and the LA Kings miss on Tim Stützle? How could they do that? Tim Stützle is a fantastic player. He had a 90-point season and a 70-point season. In his second season, he was just shy of 60. Well, some players, like we always say, not all first overall picks are created equal. Not all top 5 picks are created equal either. Quinton Byfield carved himself out to be, I think he proved he was second overall worthy this year in the NHL. This was his, he only played six games in his first year, so I don't even know if that counts, but this was his 4th season that he's played in the NHL, and I think he has shown that he was a prop. He was not necessarily the right pick because Tim Stützle still has more points or whatever, but they're different players. So he wasn't the wrong pick is the important thing. And I think that Zegras, he gets all this flack when he's just frankly, he's in an environment that's, catered for him to fail because Anaheim has just been bad for a very, very long time. Yeah. People can talk whatever they want, that they have the best prospects. They have the greatest core of being under 23 or whatever it is. Well, there's a reason for that because they've been bad for so goddamn long. That's why. And they're seemingly not getting out of it because they were bad again this year. It's just, there's all this talk about these players, and I don't like when people just write off these 21 and 22-year-olds. We're even seeing it with Slavkovsky.
Yep. Yeah, and we were talking about Necas before, and like I said, he's not really a game changer. Zegras has the ability to be a game changer if they were able to acquire him. And mentioning again, that 23-year-old, the Canes have so many of those guys. So 2 years from now, you're going to have all these guys that are going to be 25, 26 years old that should be in the prime, getting into the prime of their career, including Nick Suzuki. Nick Suzuki hasn't hit the prime of his career yet. And Cole Caulfield and Caden Gooley and Arbor Jacki and all these guys. And, you got Jacob Fowler coming up as your potential goalie of the future. I wrote a column on him this week. Like, they've got so many young, talented prospects working their way up, and they're all in that age group that they should all hit their peak right at the same time in another 2 years from now, 2 to 3 years from now. And that would be, the 5th full year into a rebuild. And that's when you expect to see results. And, to bring in a guy like Zegras and have him develop and come up with these guys. And Anaheim's also not a hockey market, right? Zegras seems to have a little bit of swagger and cockiness to him, which might make him thrive more in a hockey market where people actually really care. People care about the game. People care about what you're doing. People recognize you when you walk around the streets. So, as I said, there's the biggest problem the Canadiens have. They don't have enough forwards who can produce offense, and they need to find some. And they need to find some younger ones. Like, it doesn't make sense. People talking about free agency and getting Steven Stamkos, or like at the age Steven Stamkos is, I don't think he's a fit with the Canadiens with the age that their group is. Like, Steven Stamkos is getting near the end of his career. If it was 2 or 3 years down the road and the Canes were farther along the rebuild and Steven Stamkos was available, maybe you take a shot on him if he's agreeing to like a 2-year contract. But they're sticking to that rebuild process of getting guys in that age group. And if it's not Zegras, I think whoever they do make a trade for, it'll be somebody in that 23, 24, 25 age group that they're looking at.
So someone, another player, we're going to move on here, another player, but we will make a connection. That's another young talent coming up. You wrote, been keeping busy. Listen, not a lot's happening this offseason with the Canadiens so far, but you've been keeping busy. And you spoke to Jay Pandolfo, 15-year NHL vet. Also, but most notably for Canadians fans, it was Lane Hutson's coach for the past 2 years at Boston University. He like many others seem to think that he is practically a lock for the Canadians this coming season to be on that blue line.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's at least going to start the season with the Canadians. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. We're talking about lack of. They got goals from their defense, but I mean, Lane Hutson is going to help your power play for sure. Lane Hutson, imagine Lane Hutson in 3-on-3 overtime. Watching Lane Hutson at the development camp last season, excuse me, he stood out like head and shoulders above everybody else on the ice. He's just every time he touches the puck, it's exciting. The vision he has, and speaking with Jay Pandolfo, he was saying that he just has that confidence with the puck and the vision of the puck. And he said he anticipates the game. I mean, the big question obviously is defensively, right? Is he going to be able to defend in the NHL? And Pandolfo told me, now he's 5'10", 162, I think he's listed at. And Pandolfo said with the frame he has, he's never going to be more than 180 pounds. Like, he just doesn't have the frame to carry more than that. But he said he's so smart with his brain. And I was speaking with his assistant coach also, who did a lot of video work with him. And he said, nobody's going to beat him on quickness. Like, nobody's going to beat him getting to the puck. And he said he worked on him a lot over the last 2 seasons, one-on-one defending. And he said he's strong on his stick and his skating ability. And he said he's hockey strong. Maybe not physically strong, but he's hockey strong. He's hard to knock him off his skates. And he's smart, has a good stick, anticipates to play well offensively and defensively. He's a special talent. He's a really, really special player. Now, if he was bigger, he would have been drafted first round guaranteed. But he's come along well at Boston University, and Pandolfo got 15 years NHL experience. He knows whether guys can play in the NHL or not, or whether they're ready. And I'd asked him, back in his day, would a guy like Hutson be able to play? And he said, well, it would have been a lot more difficult. I mean, it really would have been difficult. But as he said, the game's changed a lot. We see more and more of these smaller defensemen succeeding in the NHL. Again, my concern is he going to be able to defend well in the NHL in the regular season? And even a bigger question is, if or when the Canadians get to the playoffs, will he be able to handle the playoff battle and the grind and the size still matters in the NHL, especially in the playoffs and especially with defensemen. But I think he's definitely ready to. I mean, he certainly didn't look out of place the 2 games he played with the Canadians at the end of last season, and I think he's just such a special player. I think the Canadians are going to want to see. Okay, let's see. I mean, Slavkovsky was 18 when he came to the NHL. Hudson's 2 years older. He's 20. And I also asked Pandolfo if we thought he was ready for everything that's going to come with Montreal, with the spotlight and the pressure and whatnot. And he said, yeah. But he also said he should probably stay off social media when he's playing in Montreal. But again, I'd be very surprised if Hutson doesn't make the team out of training camp. And as I think we've spoken before on previous podcasts, I also wouldn't be surprised if there's some games the Canadians go with 7 defensemen. If they realize that maybe he is struggling a bit defensively, they can spot him that way. They can keep him for the power play. And as I said, Lane Hutson 3-on-3 in overtime. That would be a treat to watch.
And listen, for what it's worth, because I just thought of this in my head, it's Lane Hutson, 2nd-round defenseman. We'll see if he has, he definitely has the talent, but we'll see if he has the personality and that it factor. But a 2nd-round defenseman that the Canadians drafted a while back was a fan favorite as well. His name was PK Subban. But not only that, about the 2022 draft, that was the one with Yuri Slavkovsky, excuse me, that has the potential to be well, you know what it does? It has the potential to be a franchise-altering draft because you have Yuri Slavkovsky, 1st overall, still waiting to see what they have in Owen Beck, and you have Lane Hutson, who just looks like a gem. That just getting 3 pieces in a draft like that, major pieces, at least 2 of them are going to be major pieces. It's just immense, and it's a big hit for Kent Hughes, and that being his first draft with the Canadians. I'm really excited to see what Lane Hutson can do because, listen, it's like we've been saying all the time about Cole Caulfield, and Mark Bergevin said this about Cole Caulfield when he drafted he didn't just wake up being 5'7".
Yeah.
The guy was, Lane Hutson has been that size his entire hockey career, which means, sure, you're stepping into the NHL. It's a man's league, a little different. However, you're not always, when you're Lane Hutson's size, I don't care what league you're playing in. You could be playing on the Dollard junior double A Vipers. You're not the biggest guy on the ice. That's just the way it is. He was never the biggest guy on the ice.
No, and the other thing we're talking about development, Kim Brandvold's the assistant coach I spoke with, who handles the defense at Boston University and worked, Pandolfo told me he worked more closely with Lane Hutson than anybody else. And every Monday morning at 8 o'clock, Brandvold and Hutson would have a video session. And they would go, the university teams, they play 2 games each weekend. And they would go over every one of his shifts that he played over the weekend. And I asked him, how long would those video sessions last? And he laughed and said, well, he played a lot of minutes. He played like 25 minutes a game. So there was a lot of video to look over. But he said Hudson's willingness to do that every Monday morning, show up at 8 o'clock and go through at least probably I would take an hour and a half of video work with him, says a lot about him wanting to get better too. And as Brandvold said, he's a kid who wants to get better every day. He wants to be coached. He listens. He's all ears. He's like a sponge. And Slavkovsky was the same thing. Marty St. Louis said that several times. He's a sponge. He soaks up everything. He's easy to coach. So for Lane Hutson, the progress he made in his 2 years at Boston University is not just because of his skill level. It's because of his work ethic. Pandolfo said he just loves being on the ice. The kid, he loves being on the ice for practice. Like Cole Caulfield, you watch Cole Caulfield. There's never a bad day for Cole Caulfield when he's at a hockey rink. He loves it. He loves everything about being in the locker room, being on the ice. And it seems like Lane Hutson is the same type of kid. He loves everything about hockey. And I know watching the last game of the season at the Bell Center, and Hutson, confident with the puck, walking the blue line, setting up plays. It's his shot that Slavkovsky deflected in for 20th goal of the season. He looked confident, and he looked like he was just having fun. And after the game, I said to him, it looks like you were just having fun out there. And he said, well, it's hockey. It's supposed to be fun. Yeah, I was having fun. But that speaks a lot to a kid who's just the pressure. That's Pandolfo mentioned that. Like, he doesn't think the pressure is going to get to him because hockey's still a game to him. Like, it's something that's fun to do. And he enjoys it. And he's willing to learn. And he's willing to put in the work. So, again, maybe he won't be able to defend in the NHL. Maybe he just is too small. But Boston University coaches believe that it's going to be difficult. Like they both said, there's going to be growing pains. There's no doubt for any young defenseman going into the NHL, there's going to be growing pains. We've seen it with Arbor Jacki. We've seen it with Caden Gooley. We've seen it with all of them. It's not an easy league to play defense in at any age. But the Canadiens are in a position with this rebuild. They're in a position they can allow them to make those mistakes and learn from them for a year or two. So that's why I'd be surprised if he doesn't start the season here, because I think they want him to get a real taste of the NHL. They want to see if he's really ready for it, and they want to see allow him to start off in an environment where he's allowed to make mistakes. If he coughs up the puck and it's a goal, they're not going to bench him. He's going to be right back out to the next shift. They're going to show him what he did wrong. So to me, it's a perfect environment for him to start the season in the NHL, at least start the season, if not play the whole year here. And I'd be surprised if he doesn't stick around the whole year. I think the skill level is just so good, and I think he'll learn. I think he'll progress as the season goes on. That doesn't mean there might not be some bad games where he's a -3 or -4 or coughs up the puck a couple of times. We've seen the way fans react to Mike Matheson when he gives up the puck. It's going to be the same thing with Lane Hutson. Players who keep the puck on their stick and take chances are going to cough it up. And as Mike Matheson had the great quote at the end of the season, if all our defensemen just fired the puck off the glass and got it out of our zone, we'd never win a game. And he's absolutely right. You need some players who are willing to take chances and have the ability to take chances. And Lane Hutson has both of those things.
And that was also, like I mentioned, the number one knock on PK Subban. It was always people love to point out that he always led the NHL in turnovers or whatever it was. Yeah,
Makar has a ton of turnovers also. And Bobby Orr really had a lot of turnovers back there. They didn't keep track of those stats. The more you have the puck on your stick, the more opportunities you have to do good things, and the more opportunities you have to do bad things. And offensively, you want your offensively skilled players to take some risks and try to make some fancy plays. You don't want them, as Mike Matheson said, You don't want them just firing the puck up the boards or getting over. You don't want Lane Hutson just carrying the puck to the red line and dumping it in every time, right? You want him to take a chance if he sees an opening and go for it. And that's exactly what he's going to do. And as I said, at this stage of the rebuild, he's in a situation where they will allow him to do that and allow him to make the mistakes.
And again, it's just another one of those players that, listen, if nothing materializes this offseason and what we've been saying, and that, something big is going to come, we don't know what it is, but they're at least going to try to. If the Canadians don't make a big move to give this rebuild a shot in the arm, they're going to strike out swinging. They're going to
if
go down.
It won't be from a lack of effort. I mean,
exactly.
He's in a great position with the assets he has, with all the young defensemen, all the draft picks, especially in a salary cap league for teams that are up against the cap and looking to maybe move a guy 23, 24 years old is going to be making more money. He's in a real position of strength when it comes to that. But again, he's not going to mortgage the future. So if he ends up doing like another Alex Newhook type of trade, which is be fine. Like, I don't think Canadians fans should freak out if he pulls off another trade like that. If he does that, I think they just need to understand that I'm sure the effort was there to do something bigger, but what other teams wanted was too much, or the players that were out there he didn't think were worth giving up what those guys were asking for. So at minimum, I think we're going to see another Kirby Dach, Alex Newhook type trade. And as I said, I wouldn't be surprised if it's something much bigger than that.
Well, and you know what? There's a lot of teams out there like it's not going to happen with them, but these next two teams I'm going to mention, I don't see anything happening with them for different reasons. One, Toronto, because it's Toronto, and I don't see the Canadians making a move with them. And the other one is Edmonton, but I just don't see a fit anywhere. But there are a lot of teams like Toronto and Edmonton that have just a ton of money invested in their forwards. They need cheap defensemen, and they need cheap, talented defensemen. And what do the Canadians have? A lot of those. So it's not going to be with those two teams, I don't think, but those would be the partners you're looking at of those two teams. Like, look at Edmonton. They're icing, I guess, a $9.25 million defenseman that was actually Kent Hughes' client. He's the one who got him that deal. And this guy he is just under so much fire, Darnell Nurse.
Yeah.
Rightfully so, he hasn't been good. He had an okay game last game, but so did everyone on Edmonton. Mm-hmm. And it's just, they are starving they need cheap talent on the back end, because who are they icing? They're icing Darnell Nurse, but then you also have a cheap gem in Vincent Desharnais, but you're also icing Cody Ceci, who hasn't been very good. They need these defensemen, and they're very, very valuable, especially when they're on their rookie deals or on some sort of bridge deal.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jordan Harris, right? That's why there's a reason why his name kept popping up on the trade bait lists before last year's trade deadline. 23 years old. He's got 130 games already of NHL experience. He's got one more year on his contract at $1.4 million. A lot of teams would like to have a guy that young with that potential, that small of a salary cap hit. And you're right, teams like Toronto will invest so much money in their Edmonton and their top 4 or 5 players. They're looking for young, cheap talent. And there's other teams out there like that, as I said. And Kent Hughes has a lot of that, along with draft picks. So it's going to be interesting to see Jonathan Kovacevic. I don't know where he fits moving forward. I don't know, but as part of packaging him with other things, he's making the NHL minimum, and he's shown he can be a very effective number 6 defenseman. Great teammate. So, you package a young defenseman, you package a draft pick. Excuse me. You package a Kovacevic, and maybe you're able to make a trade. And that's those are the cards that Kent Hughes holds. So heading into the draft and heading into free agency.
We shall see. Again, we say it every week, but we're getting it creeps up on you fast. These weeks fly by, and every week we get closer and closer. Stu, it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
All right, you too.
That was Stu Cowan. I'm Matt Ohayon. Shout out, producer Shane. Thank you for all your help, and thank you all for listening and watching every single week. every single night, 5 nights a week. We don't stop. We'll keep going through the summer. We'll talk to you next time. Thank you very much.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Laval.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.